Hello and welcome back to the Airshow Lounge podcast. On today's episode, we are going to discuss the continued announcements for Sywell 2024, the more flying balls being announced at Midlands Air Festival, and a little bit of a cool announcement at Shuttleworth, and anything else that we end up talking about in this episode. My name is Dan, and joining me today is...
There's people here, right? Hi, I'm Alex. Good to see you all again.
Christ, oh my
Hope you're
God.
doing all well. We can cut that in post. It's fine, guys. Don't worry about it.
It's fine.
But yeah, hello everyone. My name is Alex. You can find me frequently at RAF Lakenheath and Mildenhall taking photos. Sometimes I go by Strix Photos online.
And I'm Matt. Again, always enjoy being at the fence line at Lakenheath or Coningsby.
So we might as well jump right into everything as we normally do, and the normal starting topic for every single one of these podcasts so far is Sywell announcing loads of stuff. Again, we're now at 6 Mustangs with the announcement of P51 Miss Helen and their own Sywell-based Jersey Jerk P51, which I think is a 2-seater, which will be doing flights from May, I think they said, with Ultimate Warbird flights. They have announced another Spitfire, 2 Bouchons, 3 Tiger Moths, Corsair number 3, a C-47 Night Fright, which is currently in restoration, a Grumman Wildcat, and then a R4D, from America on static.
I think they're getting pretty close to having a full flying fighter squadron at this point, right? I mean, when you think about it, the amount of Mustangs they've got coming in, Spitfires, is an impressive plethora of Warbirds, which is probably one of the biggest we've seen in the UK for a little while.
I mean, the last time I remember something like this is definitely got to be Flying Legends, or Flying Legends of old at Duxford. It's nice though, because they finally announced in the past 2 weeks, it's been 2 weeks since we've recorded the last episode, that we have got some Axis fighters coming and giving the many Allied fighters a run for the money with 2 Bouchons.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of hoping we see some like scenarios, maybe. Fingers crossed if they're able to pull that off. Some little chase scenarios and little things where they kind of show off the performance of each of the aircraft and how they can outmaneuver each other or chase each other in an old school battle. Always enjoyable to watch. I know we see it sometimes at Duxford, right?
Yeah, I think most of the time we see that, isn't it? It's the normally at the summer festivals or the Battle of Britain air shows towards the start of September. It's going to be, I don't know, they're just getting so many different things in now, and they have now finally decided that they're going to give me and Jack here on social medias a nice little break and not be announcing 2 things every day, so I'm not having to check Facebook and Twitter every 5 minutes. But yeah, we're getting some. They're just now finishing up. I think it's just that we're getting to the part where now it's going to be maybe some RAF announcements waiting until March if they're going to go for like the Red Arrows, obviously, and stuff like that, which they did have in their poster, which I presume the Red Arrows will probably be announced sometime when their schedule comes out.
I think going back to that idea of the tail chase, it's definitely probably something that's not out the question. I can't say I've done too much research into it, but I think as part of, if you do like your Ultimate Warbird flights from Sywell, they have a tail chase option, and you go up either in a Spitfire or a Mustang, and you got a Messerschmitt behind you in a tail chase. You can sort of begin to feel what it might have been like for those pilots of old. So I think it's probably something that's not entirely out the question for to put together a sort of like display routine, if you know what I mean.
I mean, they've got to do something with all the aircraft they've announced, right? They can't just keep it with the single. Not everything will be flying as singles. And I think when we get close to the airshow, I think is when we'll slowly get to know what's going to be flying with what, because as it's been said by the organisers of the show, all you know is what aircraft are being flown. You don't know how they're being flown yet. You don't know what's happening. We don't know. They promised formations that we've never seen before, or formations that haven't been seen for a while. Unique formations. So I mean, just loads of different things. I mean, 6 Mustangs. Are we going to get 6 Mustangs in a formation?
Yeah, it's quite an exciting aspect. You've got so many different Mark versions of the Spitfires as well. And I know you mentioned it obviously at the start when we're kind of talking about what we're going to talk about, but the Jersey Jerk is quite a a recent restoration.
Yeah.
I was just kind of quickly looking up some of the history of it, because it's quite impressive actually. Originally built in Melbourne, Australia, construction number 1435, delivered in 1948. Spent most of his life in Australia, before being sold for scrap in 57. But then it was kind of reappeared as a restoration project in Florida. So somehow it's made over to the States, and then they shipped it back to Australia, and then it got its airworthy status. And then it flew for a little bit. 2002, it has full dual controls from the passenger seat as well. And then it was kind of operated as as a joy flying machine. And then it was sold again recently in 2020, where it's now going to be here, over on the other side of the world, practically in the UK. And I mean, what a beautiful paint job it's got, in honor of the Jersey Jerk Mustang of Major Donald H. Strait of the 356 Fighter Group, paying homage to his state of New Jersey. And it's lovely to see, a proper all-American kind of looking Mustang, despite its many countries and history that it's actually gone through, coming from Australia and such. I'm quite excited to see quite a variation of aircraft, and we're going to see a lot of that at Sywell, all these little differences, and I'm sure it's going to be quite impressive on the flight line if we're going to see them, being lined up depending where they're parked, having them all together, kind of almost like in little groups.
Yeah.
I think I'm quite looking forward to the static park. Obviously, they said we got the flight line walk, which you can purchase a ticket for on the day, but it means obviously that most of the the flying aircraft are going to be located relatively quite close to where like the public are standing. So if you've got a whole squadron of aircraft going up, that would be quite a sight to see. I don't know if anybody's been to Little Gransden before. I'm hoping it's similar to that, where literally you've got like the barrier to separate just the public and the aircraft that are going up to display.
It wouldn't surprise me if it's something similar to like Duxford. You have the taxiway that goes across the front of the crowd line, and then you have the aircraft park behind that. But they did say that they are going to try and, have full-blown access to the aircraft within, like meters of the aircraft. They said they want to be able to get really up close, get some really cool shots. They said that they have reenactment parts, which they're going to pull aircraft and park them in. So throughout the morning of the flight line walk, they're going to have little recreation spots where they will pull a couple of aircraft and rotate them out every 20, 30 minutes, where they'll have proper reenactment people reenacting getting into aircraft and stuff. Not just like at Duxford where you have people just stood on the flight line. They said they'd go through a whole process of basically getting the pilot to get to the aircraft, getting them in the aircraft to the point before startup, so you can get photos of all of that, which would be something really cool. I think they're really just thinking about everything, aren't they?
It is, yeah. It's going to be a really quite an experience of a day. It seems like there's going to be a lot to look at, and don't stand in one spot. Basically, get out there and kind of have a walk around. Because who knows what you're going to see. I'm very excited by the Douglas R4D ready for duty that are going to be bringing over from the States, which is an impressive journey for an aircraft of that age to make. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, did they announce? They said you're going to be able to, even have a look inside of the aircraft. They're going to be inviting people inside the aircraft and even perhaps into the cockpit for a donation.
Yes, so it's the first static announcement for the show. So it will not be flying at the show, but however, it will be on the ground. You can go inside, which is it's cool. Yeah, it's really cool that we get to have something that we don't see in the UK, basically at all. That you get to go inside, and I'm glad that they're going to be doing donations and stuff to make money for the for obviously keeping the aircraft running and stuff like that. I think it's also alongside, speaking of keeping aircraft running, the C-47 Night Fright that's currently in restoration, hopefully going to be flying this year.
This one that's based out of Coventry, isn't it? I think they've been quite a long-term restoration project. I believe I read somewhere, I think at one point it was down at Membry in Oxfordshire, I think, and then it eventually went up to Coventry, and I think it's like quite close from what it seems to its first flight post restoration, and then coming to Sywell and being part of the DDay squadron commemorations.
I do wonder how close it kind of is to its restoration, because as Dan, you were saying a little bit before we started recording here, that they said they're going to really try and focus on getting this spurred up and almost having a bit of a social media silence about it. So it may seem like a bit of uncertainty from our perspective, but I really hope that they do get her ready in time, because she does look like a lovely aircraft to have as part of the air shows they've already started announcing and lining up, and especially for that anniversary as well. Seems like the team have put in a lot of work, and I'd love to see it in the skies.
It's got
Yeah,
quite a good history about it as well. Having a quick read on their website, it says the aircraft, christened Night Fright, took part in all the airborne missions in Europe during the war, dropping paratroopers, towing gliders, evacuating wounded, and flying tons of much needed supplies to the front line. So it's one that's definitely, got quite a lot of history
yeah, rich with
behind it.
history.
Yeah, you
It's
don't
just
see too many aircraft that's actually seen action these days flying anymore. Or when you hear about where the aircrafts come from, usually they've just been in storage, or they were built just after the war, or they're one of the last ones off the production line. So it's quite a unique and rare opportunity to see something that's actually been involved in numerous operations flying in our sky still, which is incredible when you think about it.
Yeah, I think it's always nice to have aircraft with history. When we get the odd Spitfire, at Duxford, or a show that was involved in the Battle of Britain, it's like, yeah, this is part of our history. But it's nice to have more aircraft coming back with that sort of history and being restored to flying condition, because all I've seen recently over the past probable 12 months or so is aircraft being in the later stages of being restored. I think we've had the Tempest recently. We've always had this Mustang from Sywell. We've got this C-47. There's probably more out there that are on the verge of being restored, if not this year, next year. And it's just nice to have these being added back to the participation lists, or for the first time ever of participation lists of air shows.
I appreciate a bit of a tangent, but I think some of the nice things about these aircraft that are being restored, especially some of the ones that are a bit more hidden away out of the public view, if that makes sense. It's always nice when you see the pictures online. It's like first flight for XYZ aircraft in
Yeah,
65 years, or whatever, and then suddenly, it appears at air shows around the country, and it's like I say, that extra bit of history that's been lost for so long.
I think,
Absolutely,
yeah.
and I think there's a lot to come in the future as well. We're just looking, of course, mainly this year and maybe in the next 2 years, but looking further on in 5-10 years, I know there's numerous projects that are on the way. For restorations, I think you've got the People's Mosquito, which would be lovely. I know they've got one down
Yes.
in New Zealand. Am I correct? That's flying
Yes.
at the moment. And I know they want to try get that as flying as early as 2027. You've got the likes of Just Jane as well in Lincolnshire to get a second Lancaster going as well. I'm not really too sure on the timeline of that one, but
No.
these are expensive projects. Don't get me wrong. They are relying a lot on people and donations, and they're doing a great job of having people come along for taxi rides or do photo shoots or whatever it might be. But the potential to see so many of these aircraft flying back in our skies is fantastic. I mean, think about it. To have a Mosquito and a second Lancaster in the UK would be absolutely huge for the UK airshow scene, and Europe in general, if they can get it flying pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that we only ever get the opportunity once every now and again, when the Canadians bring over their Lancaster, like they did that time when the Vulcan was still flying. And if we can get that a more regular sight in the UK, I mean, it will be so appreciated by so many different people. I think we can all appreciate the old stuff that gets flying again.
I think one of the nice, maybe quite underrated announcements recently from Sywell has been the three Tiger Moths, with quite a focus on the Thomas Castle heritage, which was he was quite a local aviator, I believe, to the Sywell area, and unfortunately passed away in an aerobatics accident. But they've set up this scholarship in his name for young pilots to be able to learn to fly without necessarily needing to front up the sometimes obscene amounts of money required for a PPL. And obviously, a Tiger Moth is always a lovely aircraft to see in the sky, regardless.
It is, yeah, and I think they're often overlooked because you do see them quite frequently still. You go to Duxford, you can pay to fly in one. You can go for a little joyride or whatever. My dad's done it. He had a great time up there. Kind of gives you a sense of appreciation for how young lads were trained back then, right? Because essentially, it is a trainer, and going back to the 1930s, 1940s, and yeah, like, open air cockpit. The controls are quite, a bit to handle if there's a bit of wind or weather. And but they are, indeed lovely aircraft to see flying, and it's great to have them in our sky still.
Absolutely. I think other notable mentions are the third Corsair that was announced, which is coming from, I believe, France.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is, again, it's the first time in a good number of years that I can think of since we've had 3 flying in formation. Potentially, if that's what they do with them, obviously I'm speculating that they might fly 3 in formation, but if I'm thinking about the idea of an air show, to have 3 in formation, something that's not been seen in a while, is probably going to happen. But yeah, the 3 Corsairs, I always get excited when I see the one at Duxford. So having 3, yeah, brilliant.
I think that's an aircraft I don't think I've ever actually seen fly. So looking forward to that. And the one they've announced recently, I think, is in a stunning like maritime blue sort of paint
Yeah.
scheme. It looks like it'll be a nice one to see against hopefully some blue skies.
Yeah, I mean, they call it the Blue Nemesis, which I think is a very appropriate name for it, because it was assigned to the VC-3 in California, a U.S. Navy carrier, I assume, in 1951. So it's incredible that they still have it, and it's changed hand numerous times, and they've still got it flying. And yeah, I don't think I've seen a Corsair either. I'm quite used to seeing it in its normal kind of like bent wings with the yellow and the blue, but this one looks very, very different. So I'm definitely excited to see this one.
Apparently, it was also part of the Honduran Air Force as well, for
Huh.
about 14 years, it looks like, potentially, if not longer than that. Yeah, so it's got a nice little history to it. Obviously, it's now in France and coming over to the UK for this air show. I think, Sywell is it's so good this year. I think it's so refreshing to have this sort of warbird air show. As much as Duxford is your go-to if you want to see them, I think the team at Sywell have done an amazing job so far. Because again, they are still saying they have aircraft to announce, with what they've done, and it's just so nice to see an air show that everyone's really hyped about and getting excited for. Because especially last year, you had air shows that everyone was going, there's this and that, and getting upset about them or getting a bit frustrated with air shows. And it's just nice to have one that's so well with communication, thinking about both families and aviation enthusiasts, whether that's your general spotter or your photographer. They just seem to be switched on, think about everything, and just so refreshing in the air show scene.
I think it's a great first impression from them. Obviously, a lot of people are still like, well, let's see how the actual days goes, and that's what counts, sort of thing. But you can't deny, social media presence, how clear they've been, clarity coming onto other podcasts, and they've had the people talking with them and being very open about how they're doing the planning and everything like that as well, which is what a lot of the people just ask for, especially us, for the hardcore aviation community. Always keeping an eye on things. That's what we love to hear. And yeah, I got to hand it to them. The teams seems like they're very organized, and they've got a plan ahead of them. And I hope it all works out for them, because it could be a definite staple on the UK airshow scene.
I think we can link that now to another airshow that's been brilliant with communication so far this year, and slowly releasing their lineup, not as hectically pushing everything out as Sywell did, with the Midlands Air Festival. Only within the last 2 weeks, they've only announced 2 more participants, which is fine. No, 1 a week, can't complain. Which we got the P-38 Lightning, which we knew was going to be in the UK, but a new addition to the whole Flying Bulls contingent that seems to be coming over to the UK is the BO-105 helicopter from the Flying Bulls, which, oh my god, it's an absolutely brilliant display.
I have a feeling I've seen this display before, but I can't remember exactly. I think, did it come to Riyadh 1 year maybe? I seem to recall seeing some helicopter doing some sort of rather insane aerobatic maneuvers, but if it's the one I'm thinking about and just looking at the pictures, there's quite a few of it upside down. So
I was about to
that
say,
should be an
I think
interesting one.
the picture released by Midlands Air Festival with it currently upside down near some mountain ranges, I think describes the display very well, because it's just an insane display. I think if I remember correctly, it's the only aerobatically certified helicopter in the world, and you can tell why.
Yeah, I think this. I don't think I've ever seen this display, but I've definitely seen plenty of videos of this helicopter doing absolutely crazy things on social media. Because you know the Red Bulls, right? Any extreme sport, they're involved in it, and you see this
Yes.
helicopter being used for all sorts of crazy stunts, from bikes flying past and over it and under it, and doing flips over it, to the helicopter itself doing some wild, insane stuff. I'm not sure if this is a fair comparison, but almost kind of like the equivalent of Richard Pitts in the helicopter world.
Yeah,
Just
definitely.
really tossing it around, it seems like. And obviously the pilots, the team, and everyone behind that aircraft, big props to them, because obviously they've got to keep everything safe and within the limits of the aircraft, and obviously know that aircraft through and through and what they can push it through, which is a little bit scary. How far do you take it before maybe becomes a little bit of an accident or something like that? But they obviously know their limits, so I'm quite excited to see this display. Hopefully I can get myself out to Midlands. I haven't got a ticket yet, but I know a lot of people have snapped up tickets pretty fast for both Sywell and Midlands, because they are looking to be actually some of the biggest air shows of the year.
I think I'm looking at the Flying Balls website at the helicopter at the minute, and there's quite a few pictures of it with like smoke winders on the skids. So it'd be interesting to see if they bring that to Midlands as well. It seems they've got pictures of with like blue and red smoke coming off the skids. So that
There
could
was
be
an
quite an
air
interesting.
show last year it went to. I forgot what it was. Yeah, I can't remember exactly what air show. I think was it Zig Air Meet. I can't remember, and it didn't take its smoke winders with it. I'm just very quickly searching it up. It was the Zig Air Meet in 2019. They didn't bring smoke winders with it, but it was still one hell of a display even with that. I mean, the smoke winders do nothing to the display really. It's an insane display. I know they've got two. They've got two helicopters. They've got the one that's painted in the bright blue, which I presume will be their one that they'll try and bring over, and I think they have another one that's in like a more discreet grey colour. But does this open up the opportunity for them bringing even more across? I mean, what realistically, right? They're bringing over a good chunk of their contingent. What is the limit? What is the limit with the Red Bull stuff? Because we've still got potentially things that could come over, the extra 300s, the Alpha Jets. I mean, one that I would not say no to is the Cobra. I mean, hell yeah, if they could bring that across. I mean, what is the limit? Because obviously Sywell have snapped up a load of the old stuff, and Midlands are sort of going, here's the more modern stuff. They've thrown a helicopter in. I don't think it's a far push that we get the Alpha Jets or something like that.
No, not at all. And it'd be lovely to see them performing at a display here in the UK. Their presence at RAF Lakenheath with top aces has been very, very welcome, and everyone's enjoyed seeing them. But of course, we would love to see how they can performing like high G maneuvers and pushing their limits, because obviously once they take off, we don't get to see what they do. And Alpha Jets aren't really seen that much here in the UK, so they would definitely be lovely to see, and throwing themselves around the sky. And definitely talking of that helicopter, the Cobra. I mean, talk about an iconic helicopter. That would be one. If I heard an announcement for that, that would be me straight to that air show. So I think I'd love to see it. I'm not sure. Has it been flying as of recently? Still at recent air shows?
Someone's gonna have to figure that out while I carry on talking. So someone do a little bit of a cheeky lookup. But yeah, it's I don't know. I just think there's so many opportunities with the Red Bull stuff. Do we think we know the hits till the end of June? We know that with Sywell being towards the end of June. Do we think there is a possibility they stay here for an extra 2 weeks and do React? Maybe not all displaying. Maybe not all displaying because but DC6 maybe on static. Is there? Because I think if you brought the Alpha Jets, that would work well at the the rear the flight line. The BO105 maybe not as much because it's quite a very dynamic display in sort of a quite enclosed space. But I don't know. It's only 2 weeks later than what they're potentially staying here. So could they come? Could they come to Riyadh? I don't know. We always talk about Riyadh because it's the biggest show, and we are very, very close to updates. My guess is 2 weeks time. Could we get them at Riyadh?
I think that'd be quite an interesting. I think if they were, I think it'd be interesting to see how well their displays would work. Because obviously, it seems at the minute they've sort of signed up effectively to some of the more smaller, more intimate locations, Sywell, Duxford, Midlands. Not really an air show where there's a 2.5, 3 mile long display line. So I think it'd be interesting to see that if they are at Riyadh and you get to see them both at a Sywell or a Midlands Air Festival and at Riyadh, actually how different the displays may look or feel.
I just did a little bit of research into the Cobra. And it looks like it's back flying again. And it's still, it's still airworthy and still flying. So I don't know. Opportunities.
I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Because we often forget that Europe has just an incredible variety of air shows, large and small as well. And it all really comes down to their schedule, who's interested in having them, and just really taking a quick peek at the air show calendar for all of Europe. Just the week of Riyadh. There's like military parades in France. Of course, you got Shuttleworth. There's quite a few UK air shows that's happening around there. But yeah, that's just the UK, and there could be many more around Europe that could take up their presence. But it seems like they're doing a little bit of a tour of the UK. I don't have any recollection, maybe this is just my terrible fish memory, of when the Flying Bulls were kind of last together in such a big collection in the UK. I think we maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, we've had like one or two at a time, but never such a large, vast amount of their collection flying over here.
Yeah, we had the P38 and the B25 last year at Flying Legends. I think we've definitely had. It was only a couple, but they had a few aircraft at Flying Legends last year, but definitely not to the level of what we've currently got. I mean, we've got the P38, the B25, the DC6, the Corsair, the Mustang, the BO105 currently. That's all we know of so far. And again, Midlands are probably going to announce something else later this week. They haven't said that's it for Red Bull stuff. Sywell said that's the last thing. They haven't said it's it. It might be it, but...
So I've just done a little bit of a look at when they last had the Flying Bulls in the UK properly, and there's a bit on the Red Bull TV section. It doesn't specifically say where, but it looks like Duxford, and they sort of released like a little... It's called Go Inside the Airshow, Flying Bulls in the UK, and that came out in 2018. So I'm guessing maybe 2017, 2018 would have been the last time they came over, like in those large amounts.
Yeah, I don't know. It's cool. It's great. I love that we've got this for the air shows this year, and it's, as I said on the last podcast, it's weird that the only things that seem to be, double booked in a sense at multiple air shows are the Flying Bull aircraft, and that no one else has really booked the same participants bar the Flying Bulls, which it makes sense everyone books the Flying Bulls because they are what's going to drive, especially the air enthusiast crowd, of people that haven't seen the aircraft before, like me. I haven't seen the DC6 before or the B25, so it's something that I'm going to try and go to an air show to get. So it makes sense that people are announcing these now as their sort of big things. But no, it's going to be a great year for air shows and stuff. And
I gotta say, do you think it's quite unusual almost that we have such full flying kind of schedules almost already for a couple of air shows here in the UK? I feel like we need to remember, as of time of recording, it's the 28th of January, and having this much already announced from a couple of air shows and a few little ones here and there as well, it's almost a bit unusual, kind of out of the norm. Usually we don't hear things till closer. I don't know if that's just me or
mean, we're good, 4 months-ish really away from the first proper air show of the season. So, yeah, to get this many announcements this early on is, I think, I for one, think it's great, really.
I'm with you on that. It's weird because it's almost making like airshows, like I know I keep bringing it up, Cosford, look like they're really far behind. But realistically, if Cosford started announcing stuff in February, that would be in line with normal. I quotate it, normal airshow announcements. You know, Riat is normally the first one that starts announcing like big participants, where all these other air shows have taken the spotlight. I think I have a guess that Riat are going to announce something quite big to start off their announcements, or the first couple of weeks of announcements will probably be like in your face, book your tickets. We're still the best air show in the UK, sort of thing. I'd like to think that that's probably what they're going to do.
They're going to have to, aren't they? Really, though.
Yeah.
When you look at, again, we look back at the other ones being announced already for Sywell, Duxford, well, any other ones Flying Boys are going to Midlands with their classic jets. They're going to have to put something big out there as a statement announcement for the first proper update to make sure that people still, well, I know people will still go because it's free, but just to really confirm it.
Could you imagine if it's like, so on our first announcement, we're just going to announce the whole Red Bull contingent. Just here's all the aircraft that everyone else has announced. We're having them all. Come
That
and
would be a
join us.
power move, wouldn't it? Really,
it would be a power move. But
It'd be a massive flex on the UK airshow scene. Absolutely.
But my guess is, and this is a little bit of a guess from me, is I think the first announcement from Riat is going to be the Danish F-16, both flying and static. And yes, I said flying because their display pilot from last year, I think it was Teo. I think I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Said in an interview that they potentially are going to go to Riat next year with a flying and a static display. As much as the Danish F-16 was meant to be the last proper year flying was last year, because it's the 50th anniversary, apparently they're going to do Riat with both flying and static, which would be nice to see because they didn't fly both on the Saturday and Sunday last year.
It makes me wonder if that'll be one of the last times we see a display from them. Maybe they're doing only very limited season. Maybe they're just doing Riat and maybe one home one, and then that's that sort of thing. Obviously, a little bit of a surprise for many to hear about that.
Again, it's only rumours.
Last hurrah type.
Yeah, it's only rumours. It's only what's been said on forums and stuff like, this is what apparently one of the pilots said, sort of thing. And so take it with a pinch of salt. But with the way that they've been posting on social media, with some of the stuff that they've posted when Riat have posted about like happy birthday to the F-16, the only airshow that they reposted on their story on Instagram was the Riat posting about the 50 years anniversary with a caption of "this year's going to be" and then the fire emoji. Is that a little hint? I don't know. So it's going to be interesting. I hope that Riat come out the blocks, absolutely flying, and announce a load of stuff, and just be a brilliant, put itself back in the spotlight.
Well, I think with it being the F-16's anniversary, there's a bit of an expectation there to get some pretty unique ones in. I know that we've seen recently, and this is a big stretch, by the way, so please, this is no confirmation or anything, but we've seen that, the likes of Edwards Air Force Base and quite a few in the States have really done some nice paint jobs for some of their F-16s recently, going retro to some of the kind of inspired first paint jobs that they had when they were testing them, all the way up to some new anniversary paint jobs to celebrate its kind of legendary status. So it would be lovely to see those over here in the UK. But that's a big ask, I think, in that term. I think we're going to see a lot more European F-16s. As much as I'd love to say, like, oh yeah, here comes the Thunderbirds and here comes all those F-16s from the statesides. But who knows? I mean, I could be kind of eating my words in a few months' time when they announce things. I'd like to hope so. But yeah, excited at the prospect of it anyway.
I think one of the other interesting things that maybe could be coming to Riat, with it being the NATO 75th anniversary sort of theme as well, hopefully, maybe a nice NATO E3, hopefully with one of the smoke engines as well. I'd happily take one of them.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, right, every time it has announced in the past like 5 years, hasn't it cancelled or like gone tech? 2019, I remember it was meant to be there for the NATO Fly Pass for 70 years, and went tech both Saturday Sunday.
We can
Then
still
was meant
dream.
to come. Then was meant to come in 2022, the first Airshow back since COVID, and cancelled 2 weeks before. So I don't want to say never, but they've got a pretty unlucky history with coming to Riyadh. So I'd love to say it. I mean, even if it's just static. I mean, whether or not they do anything with flying, like a fly past for NATO 75, which I'd assume would include different aircraft and stuff like that. I don't know. We will see definitely when it comes around to the time. They won't announce that probably till closer.
I was going to say, I think if they're going to do something big for NATO anniversary, like a NATO fly pass with aircraft from as many different nations as possible, I think given operational tempos at the minute, it would be a relatively late
Limited.
confirmation.
Yeah, this is the fight that, big airshow organisers such as Riyadh and across Europe as well are very much struggling with. We've seen, obviously, in the past, quite a few kind of more operational bases cancel their air displays over on the stateside, and obviously cancelling, some of the more dependent aircraft in terms of flying displays and schedules or static, just because of the nature of how things are at the moment. And, we don't know what's going to be happening in several months' time, and maybe they have a little bit of an idea, but they've always got to be ready for that next move. And obviously, they don't want to put themselves in a vulnerable position at any given point. So it is a little bit of a tough battle. Ultimately, when it comes to it, as much as I'd say, I'd love to say that, it should be the popularity of the people to please them with the aircraft and everything like that. In the end, they're working for our safety and our peace, and protecting our skies, and that's their job. And if they're needed, they're needed. And we just have to kind of accept that we might see a few lackluster lineups in the future, as long as this kind of conflict goes on around the world.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think we can predict and everything, but until July rolls around and we see what turns up at Riyadh, it could end up being one of the best Riyadh shows ever.
Yeah.
Again, as much as the only thing announced currently is the F-18 from Canada, it could end up being a brilliant show, and we shall see around the time. But I do want to quickly start moving on because we have talked about Riyadh. It's quite an interesting announcement by Shuttleworth. They have also announced the P-51 Jersey jet from Sywell, but have also announced something to do with the DDay squadron. I know, Matt, you were reading up on this just before we started, with having them coming to one of their earlier shows of the season. And is it departing, driving on the Saturday, departing on the Sunday?
Yeah, so I've just done a bit more like research on it and looking on the actual Shuttleworth website, and it seems actually that they're going to arrive. It's part of it's on the May bank holiday weekend, so 25th and 26th of May this year.
Yep.
Shuttleworth is excited to announce a truly unique D-Day themed weekend supported by the D-Day squadron as part of their 2024 Legacy Tour. The weekend will see a host of ground activities, including arrival of the D-Day Squadron Legacy Tour on Saturday morning and departure on Sunday afternoon, access to all of the D-Day Squadron fleet from 12 till 7:30 on the Saturday and 10 till 3 on the Sunday, and a whole load of other classic Shuttleworth exhibitions and attractions such as military and collection vehicle displays, car clubs, vintage bus rides, and the heritage team, and everything else that Shuttleworth loves to bring to its rather quite incredible and brilliant weekend air shows. And at the minute on their website, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 visiting aircraft on the list so far, of which potentially only 1 or 2 are from the UK, 1 from France, and the rest from the USA. So I think, given the weather hopefully would be nice around that sort of weekend, it might be one to go and visit, even if it's just to go and get up close and personal with a whole host of brilliant aircraft. It doesn't seem like there's going to be much flying necessarily, but they've got the header picture shows 6 C-47s all parked up nicely together,
Well,
and
yeah,
there's not a fence around them in sight. So, to the point there's well, I hope there's people that own them clambering on the wings and showing people around them. So I think that would be a nice one to
yeah,
go and visit.
it sounds like, from what you said, it sounds like they're going to fly in on the Saturday, depart on the Sunday, and it just sounds like then you just be able to walk around them throughout the day on the Saturday and then up until mid Sunday afternoon, which is really cool. Again, they're aircraft that we don't get access to much. They come around every potentially 5 years. It's not a given that they do come every 5 years, and you'd like to hope that Shuttleworth. You can tell my mind's always on Sywell, can't you? Shuttleworth, might get them to do like a fly past first, like as a parade over the airfield on the Saturday. Then they land, and then they go up on the Sunday, do another parade, and then head off to Europe. You'd like to think that's what they could potentially get. I don't know, but it does definitely sound more ground based from what you've said.
Honestly, it just sounds like a very nice weekend to me. In all honesty, something a bit more laid back and relaxed, where you don't have to focus through your lens too much if you're a photographer, speaking wise. Looking at that photo there, how many more future opportunities are we going to get to see such a collection of C-47s and DC-3s and R-4Ds together like that, because they're old aircraft. They're not going to fly forever. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, yeah, I think that's one definitely to take an opportunity just to see them, meet the operators of them, because I'm sure they're going to be around. Maybe they'll have like a little gazebo or a tent or something like that, and then chat with them and learn the history of the aircraft, because I think that's one we could look back on one day and go, wow, wasn't that excellent? Seeing that collection of aircraft in the UK doing their D-Day anniversary runs, and having them all together in one space, where slowly but surely, unfortunately, vintage aircraft are fading from our skies, unfortunately, due to whether that be health and safety, airshow restrictions, costs, funding. There's a range of reasons. So it's not too often this comes around, like Dan was saying.
I think the Sunday would be interesting too, just for the sheer sight of seeing, potentially 9, if not the full. I think there's 12 in the total D-Day squadron they're planning, but even if it's just 9, seeing all of them departing one by one into the skies of Bedfordshire would be quite a sight to see, and maybe quite reminiscent of those times of war.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be it could be a nice mark for DD80 and showing respects and everything, and obviously they're doing some stuff at Duxford as well for the summer air show there, and it's always nice to see them making a stop in the UK before they do eventually head on to Europe. And as much as it's never going to be an infinite timed thing, it's eventually things will end. It's nice to still see them coming back with some force of aircraft, even if it just ends up being 9 at Sywell and 12 altogether at the D-Day thing. And it's just so nice. It's great.
Yeah, I think Shuttleworth have done a great job of just kind of open up the opportunities for everyone to enjoy something there. Like you're mentioning, there's not just the aircraft, there's the car clubs. Bring your Oyster card, because there's a vintage bus ride as well. Just bring everything along. Have a picnic out on the field. Have a bite to eat, and enjoy kind of like the more wartime theme. There's kind of something there for everybody, I would think.
Yeah, definitely be a good family day out, I think, for anyone that's thinking of just having a nice, relaxed weekend, see a couple of aircraft. I think Shuttleworth's always that sort of air show. It's always nice that they start off the air show season as well.
I think it's worth. I haven't looked into it too much, but hopefully you still get access to the entire collection with that ticket too,
Yeah.
because that's, you can easily spend so long just up and down the collection, and you're going to see something different every time, or spot a new little intricate detail. I know I was there for the one of their night shoots just before, I think it was end of October, I think it was, and I got there mid-afternoon when I could, to get access to the collection, and you could spend 5 or so minutes at each aircraft and you still won't pick up every single little detail
Yeah.
about them, because they're so meticulously restored. And I think it's a true testament to their engineers and mechanics there who keep them in such lovely condition and, for the most part, flyable as well.
Yeah, and I think everything we've talked about on this podcast and previous podcasts is that this 2024 airshow season is looking to be a damn good airshow season for both classic, military, modern and old, any sort of aircraft, helicopters, fast jets, piston, radial engines, anything you can think of. They are going to be at some form of airshow this year. And this year is looking like it's going to be one of the better airshow scenes we've had in a while. And that is a great thing to think of when it comes to UK airshow scene, which a couple of years ago you might have thought may have been starting to die out. And it's just nice to see this all popping back up and being great. And I think that is a really nice place to end this podcast on talking nice and positively about what's to come. And let's hope that the weather, fingers crossed, is good for all the air shows this year. And that is the end, I think, of this podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please do follow us on socials. We are on Instagram and Facebook currently. That's where we post all the latest news from any air shows we can, as long as I try and keep up to date with it. And you can chat with us on the comments. We're always happy to have conversations. And yeah, we'll see you hopefully in a week or two when Riat maybe have announced the first announcements for the next air show. I hope you have a good one. Have a good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever you listen to us. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye, everyone.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.